teach your children well. Their father's help did slowly go by, and feed them on your dream.
It is an honor to introduce Jeanette Deutermann. Jeanette is the public school parent of 2 boys. She founded Long Island Out to Out and co-founded New York State Allies for Public Education, a coalition of over 50 education organizations. Over the past 4 years, Jeanette has advocated for the removal of Common Core and high-stakes testing in our children's classrooms, against the defunding and privatization of our public schools, and for the concept of whole child teaching and learning to once again return to education. She has testified before the State Senate, State Assembly, and Governor Cuomo's Common Core Task Force. She continues to work with numerous state legislators, SED officials, Board of Regents members, rank-and-file educators, unions, and parents to clear a path back to common sense education that meets the needs of all New York State children.
Okay, I'll go quick because I know it's getting late and everybody's getting tired. Really, I just want to give you some updates on what's been going on. Even just today, there's another update. John King was just appointed to head our entire country's education department. I'm choking that out. It passed 49 to 40, which is actually, he didn't get as many votes as we thought he'd get. There was a big push at the end with NP and all that to oppose. Surprisingly, Gillibrand voted no. We believe that from the efforts in New York, she must have gotten thousands and thousands of emails. So it was good that she voted no. Board of Regents. Everybody here kind of mentioned the Board of Regents and told you a little bit about what's going on with them. Just so you know, a few years ago, and as Mike said, nobody knew who the Board of Regents were. NYS New York State Allies started getting involved in the Board of Regents elections. First, I remember when we were all discussing it and saying, right, like, how does it happen? Like, we have no idea how these people get elected. We have no idea how they get put in. Where do they have to have expertise? Do they not? Turned out they were mostly just socialites. They were wealthy people, people that were friends, very good friends with Sheldon Silver. That is how our Board of Regents, notoriously operated. Now, once we got involved and started shining a light on it and looking into the backgrounds of every Board of Regent member and discussing them and putting them out there and pushing for some of them to step down and be replaced, we now, over the last couple of years since we got involved, half of the board has been replaced. This year, 3 more had gotten replaced. And, we are hoping, the idea was to get the majority vote. And, we came close this past year. We had about 6 Board of Regents members who were voting against Merrill Tisch's reforms. We're hoping with the new Board of Regents members, although 2 of them we're not quite sure about yet. We don't know sort of the direction that they're going to go in. But we believe definitely one of them will be on our side, and we may get the majority. Also, Betty Rosa, she is supposed to be voted in next week. We are crossing our fingers that happens. If she does get in, she is a very close ally. She's been supported by our groups, and she has a very, very strong and clear vision for what she wants from in the changes, and it's in the opposite direction of Merrill Tisch. So that's a really good thing. But that will really change everything. Once we get the leaders of these organizations that are running things, they set, I don't know, if you don't know Board of Regents, they're like our Board of Eds. They set the policy that the State Ed Commissioner is supposed to carry out. So they are really the most, and even more so than the Board of Ed, they really do direct all the policies. They hire the commissioner, so they hired Elia. Hopefully, once we've restructured everything, hopefully she is short-lived. Data. why a lot of people got into all this fight is because of their kids' data that was being compromised, and the idea that the data was going to be collected and stored, and InBloom was one of the first big wins that we had. We went up, it was a little bit David versus Goliath. All of these things are really David versus Goliath, but InBloom in particular was a multi-million or billion-dollar industry that was there to collect the data. They would sell to third-party vendors, and New York parents, New York was the last holdout that was still using InBloom, and New York parents fought back, and we got rid of InBloom. But when the law was passed to protect our data, they were supposed to put in a chief privacy officer. And a year and a half later, that still has not happened. So NYS recently, we've been having conference calls with state ed, and Beth Berlin in particular, who was the interim chancellor, interim commissioner. Now that we have Elia, now she's back to being some head there in state ed. So we've been having conference calls with her, and through those conversations and meetings, they are now actively seeking the chief privacy officer, and we're hoping, they've told us that within the next month or two they will have that person. And that person is supposed to oversee then what is going on with our data, and it's supposed to be a go-to person to deal with this issue. The other thing that was going to happen is they were going to put all of our kids' data into the state archives forever. Instead of what schools used to do, which is, they go in a closet for 5, 10 years or whatever it is, and then when the closet got filled, they took the files and they threw them away. Now that it's all, on computers, this data can indefinitely stay there. And the danger with that is we don't know who's going to have access to that data. So any of your kids' records, anything like attention deficit, okay? We don't know if at some point in the future some job will be able to access that information that normally they would never have access to. And now they can see that. So that's the fear with these records being out there, that this is something that is not going to be secure. So we are in talks with SED, and we've been assured that that will not happen, that it will not go into the state archives indefinitely, that they will fix that. I don't know who came up with that idea or who started that policy, but apparently now that we're on it, they'll reverse on that. But it just shows you how, if you don't stay on top of this stuff and you don't advocate to stopping some of the things that they're doing, they just run amok. Charter schools. Now Marla brought up the charter school situation. We have charter chains that are trying to move into Long Island, and it's not just one that was trying to move in one place. We have a charter chain network that has their sights set on a whole number of districts all across Long Island, and one in particular that was they were very aggressive about, they wanted to start one, they start one and then they fan out and open up, but they needed to be successful in this first endeavor, and that was out in Brentwood and Central Islip, and the parents, we got involved, we started showing up and they go into communities where the parents don't normally show up for these meetings, and they do that on purpose because they won't get the backlash and they can move right in and nobody opposes them. So we started getting our people to show up to the meetings. So the first handful of meetings, we had people there that weren't necessarily residents of that district, but they were still concerned citizens in those meetings, and opposed it, and that grew. We got more people on board, and then the community itself took over, and they started rallying each other. And the last meeting they had, I wasn't there, but I saw pictures of it, an entire gym filled with community members opposing this charter school, and a few days later, a week later, they pulled their application. And that is how you successfully keep charters out of your area. But this is, again, part of this movement that allows for that to happen, because everybody's sort of already connected with all these issues and aware of what charter schools are. I remember when I first started and I brought up charter schools, and everybody was like, why are you talking about charter schools? That's not opt-out. You're an opt-out page. Why are you talking about charter schools? Nobody understood the connection, and we worked really hard over the last 4 years to make parents understand that they are so intricately connected, the two problems, because that's what it is about. That's what all this testing and all the reforms, that's what they're about, is the privatizing. Bills. Bonnie spoke of the Pathways bill. There's 3 other bills that right now we're working on. We've been working for the last few weeks on with Assemblyman Ty Kaminsky, who is running for Skelos' seat. The important thing there, and whether anybody of you, unfortunately I know more about politics now than I ever wanted to know, but what goes on in politics, you have to have the majority party be the ones to come out with these bills. We've seen many great bills come out from the minority in the Assembly, which is the Republicans in the Assembly. Great bills, a lot of them are great allies of ours that I really, we've done a lot with them. The problem is you can't get a bill passed unless it's the majority that passes the bill. It just won't pass. And when I tell you that these guys are so childish in the legislature about how they interact with each other, about how they deal with each other. Oh no, well, he sponsored that bill. No, well, we're not going to sponsor that bill because I'm not giving him credit for that. And that is exactly the way they operate. And they don't lie about it. They come right out and say it. And that's such a dysfunctional system, but that is the system that we live in right now. So when you're talking about the Senate majority is Republican. So a bill has to either come out of them or it has to come out of the Dem Assembly. That is why we've had so much trouble getting a bill started, because we haven't had either of those groups put forward a bill that's good enough to really launch us into a whole nother, we've had little tweaking bills, but nothing really substantial. And now, since last year, that is still on the books. That law now, the Transformation Act, is on the books. It ties 50% of the teacher's evaluation to a test score. Right now, we have a moratorium on state test scores, but it's not a moratorium on tests. So your kids' test scores, your local test scores, the math test that Marlo described for the kindergarten kids, that now is their 50%. So these assessments are still firmly in place and firmly being used to evaluate the teachers. It is still a test-focused classroom. Unfortunately, the rhetoric you're going to hear is the tests are not tied to evaluations anymore. It's fine. Have your kids take the tests. No big deal anymore. What they don't understand is because this law is still in, or they do understand, but it's a convenient way to try to coerce parents to take the test. But that is still what is the problem right now, and it's still on the books. So some of these bills that we've been working on, and we want to get them right. It's a lot of legislature, they come up with, okay, they do it as more of a publicity stunt. Let's come up with this bill, looks great, who cares if it doesn't get passed? We put it out there, we got our name on it, now we take credit for the fact that we put the bill out. Whether it passes or not, who cares? We've been working with Kaminsky's team, and the first thing I said was, this can't be a publicity stunt. This has to be for real, or else I can't waste time on this. And they have been very, very good about taking their time, not just putting it out. Otherwise, it would have went out 3 weeks ago if it was more just for publicity. Instead, we took our time. We've gotten a team together. We're reviewing the bills. We're going over them. We're making sure they're right, adding things, taking things out. And what we're looking for is what the bills say. One of them is about receivership, to repeal the receivership portion of the bill. The other one is the pathways. Another one is the length and the days of the test and the transparency issue. And the last one is the APPR, to fully decouple all testing from the APPR. Now, whether this has a chance remains to be seen. The fact that it's being sponsored, though, in the Assembly majority is a really good sign. And we will be able to put pressure on the legislature, and you'll see something coming out over the next few weeks and the next month where we will put pressure on the legislature to sign on to that stuff and support it. Board of Education elections, we had 70-something that we backed, Long Island opt-out, and we had 56 of those Board of Education candidates get on the Board of Ed. That's another big deal. We've transformed entire districts through that means. You know, the Board of Ed is the head of the school. Dr. Rella always says something, he says, you get the district you deserve. And it's amazing when you go into some schools where the parents are so up in arms about how the district is being run, and I'll say to the room, so who's running for the Board of Ed? Silence. And what do you say? Hate to tell you, but nothing will change. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, and if there's something wrong, whether it's you or getting somebody else to run for the board and then backing that person and getting the word out and helping them with their candidacy. So we saw Cuomo's task force. That was important for one particular reason. It was Cuomo's graceful bow out in education. And you have heard over the last few months, crickets from Cuomo's team, which is exactly where we want it to stay. We want him to stay quiet and remove himself from all education matters, and that is where he should stay. It was never a good thing. When he got involved, things went from bad to worse. So that is a real plus. The moratorium, we know, is a moratorium on state test scores. Yes, that's the most egregious, but we still have the other test scores. Pearson out, Questar in. Not quite yet. You will hear Questar is making the test this year. Pearson's not making it. No, this is not a Pearson test. This is a Pearson test that your kids will take this spring. Okay, Questar is acting as sort of an apprentice, and they're following the questions, and they're going to be, helping Pearson with the scoring and being somewhere involved. How two companies are involved in the same test is ridiculous. But they'll say that teachers wrote the questions this year now. That is such a lie, blatant lie. The way they have teachers review these questions is they give the teachers the test and they say, okay, make suggestions or tell us what you think about it, and they do their thing and they collect it all, and that's it. Whether or not any of those changes were taken or they can't change the question, they can't change the choices on the answers. They can point out if they see a flaw or they see something wrong, but these are not teacher-created questions. So what has allowed these changes? And you also heard about some of the other non-changes, test question length and all that. We're hearing so much that everything's changed, it's fine, get your kids to take the test. Absolutely none of this stuff is true. It is a convenient way to try to me, it's just trying to trick parents into having the kids take tests. And what I want to know is what those superintendents will say and administrators when on the first day of the test and the kids come home after 4 hours of unlimited time testing and their kids come home in tears, an administrator that told them everything's different this year, it's totally different, it's fine to have your kids take the test. What are they going to say? What answer are they going to give those parents that say, I thought you said everything was different, my kid's a mess? The only thing that has allowed all these changes to take place is the opt-out movement. It's the only thing that has pushed this needle. The only reason legislators will call me or my team and say, what do you want from us? What should we do? The only reason is because of opt-out numbers. Do we need to have a certain magic number of opt-outs? No. But we need to have enough that it disrupts the test. We need to have enough that it makes a strong, sends a strong message. We need enough where they say, oh crap, those are all voters. Okay, we are a voting bloc now. And that voting bloc is scaring the hell out of Albany. So we need to just keep up that strength and just show them that that we're not going away. This wasn't just a 2-year fad or a 3-year fad. That we demand to see real changes inside the classroom, not being discussed. Right now all the changes are just more in the discussion phase, which is still an improvement, but it's still nowhere near a done deal. I just want to end with one little story that I kind of wrote from all the information that I have gotten from teachers, where I asked them for feedback and I said, what happened in your classroom the first day of the test, or the second day, or during testing? And teachers last year responded. I had so much information that came back, narratives about what it was like in their classroom and what these kids go through. And now just understand when I'm reading this that nothing about this story will change from that last year to this year. It is exactly the same, if not worse, because again, we're talking, they've given directives now that if a kid is working through lunch, they have to have other staff and teachers sit with the kid during lunch and make sure that they don't talk about the test to their friends. So they'll have somebody, a monitor, sit with them during lunch. That's how long they expect some of these tests are going to go on. Strip away all the rhetoric, all the political battles, the union battles, all the money. What do you have left? You have left a child who as young as 8 is taken into a room, stripped of all the wall art and colorful learning tools by teachers and school administrators whose normally warm, jovial, and friendly behavior has been replaced by solemn looks of concern. Yes, some concern for themselves, how these children do on these assessments, will be published in local papers, go on their permanent records, and can make or break their careers. But most of that concern is that of their students, their children, whom they are charged with protecting, who are about to be thrown to the wolves. As these youngest learners take their seats, they are given stern instructions that are antithetical to a normal elementary school classroom. No speaking, no noise, no looking around, no asking for help on questions. The child begins to get nervous. This nervousness is making them feel like they have to use the bathroom, but they were just told that going to the bathroom was a really big deal. The test begins. They believe this test is very important. Their parents and teachers told them not to worry, that it doesn't matter, but they know it does. They know their teacher has been preparing them for it all year. They desperately want to please their teachers and parents. They begin reading the questions. They don't understand what they're reading. The reading passages is 3 grade levels above their own. They don't understand the questions either. There seems to be 2 right answers for every question. Panic creeps in. A classmate begins crying. This causes another to cry. The teacher tries to calm them down, but the teacher herself has tears in her eyes as well. An hour and a half go by while the child struggles to complete questions that were designed to fail 70% of her and her classmates. She has a special education classmate that will have to endure a grueling 3 hours of testing, as he has double time for testing. The test is finally over. Unfortunately, this was just one day. This child will have to repeat this event 5 more times over the next 2 weeks. The teacher doesn't bother with normal instruction over these 2 weeks. The children just can't endure anymore. That is the reality that we have lived with for years now, and that is still the reality that will take place this spring. I'll end with a quote from Jonathan Meade: "Sometimes the easiest way to solve a problem is to stop participating in the problem." Thank you.
Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh.